Good morning, everyone. So, in today's session, we are going to talk about the philosophy of research and particularly look at the philosophical paradigms. So, whether you are doing research methods or maybe you are doing social theory, you will see that there are a number of philosophical paradigms that you are going to meet. In research methods, of course, people talk about positivism, they talk about interpretivism, they talk about pragmatism, or sometimes refer to this as critical realism. So in this session, I want to talk about two of the key philosophical paradigms that you find in both social theory and research. So the first dominant philosophical paradigm that we have is called the positivist paradigm, sometimes referred to as positivism. So positivism is a concept that was coined by a gentleman called, a sociologist called Auguste Comte. That was in the early 19th century. Where he was trying to develop what he referred to as the science of society. He initially called it social physics before changing that name to what he referred to as sociology. So this positivist paradigm drew much of its inspiration from the natural sciences, the hard sciences. That is your physics, your chemistry, your biology, those that deal with what are referred to as hard facts from the sciences or the hard sciences. So there are a number of principles that are associated with the positivist paradigm or the positivist tradition. One of the key principle is that they believe that we have one truth, we have a single truth or a single reality. And they believe that regardless of where you are in terms of time and space, this reality is something that's universalized. You can think of your mathematical principles such as additions or subtractions, like 1 plus 1, whether you are in Europe, in the US, or in Africa. In most cases, when people ask 1 plus 1, the answer will always be 2. So they believe that we have one truth, we have one reality, and they also believe that this truth and this reality can actually be discovered. What scientists and researchers, social scientists and researchers need to do is to go out there and discover that truth. So you only discover something that is already in existence, meaning to say that its existence is what maybe some people would refer to as a priori. It's something that's already there that you go and discover. So these guys also believed in a value-free knowledge production process. They believe that we as scientists and as researchers, we can actually detach ourselves from the knowledge that we are producing, that we can detach ourselves from the theories that we are producing, and we limit and eliminate the bias that we bring into the research process. So they believe in objectivity, that we can be objective as researchers, regardless of the fact that we might have our own biases. But if we make use of what they refer to as the scientific methods, then we are more likely to be very objective. We are more likely to arrive at that objective and universal truth that they were talking about. So these guys believed also in verifiability, right? That we need to adopt approaches that allows us to verify the claims that we make, the conclusions that we make in knowledge production. So we can verify this through making use of the scientific principles or making use of science. So verifiability, replicability is central to our understanding of positivist as a paradigm, that we only have to rely on things that could be measured, things that could be verified, things that could be replicated. And when you replicate, you are expected to have the same kind of results, regardless of time, regardless of space. Typical of what people do when they are doing experiments. You know that if you mix this particular chemical with that particular chemical, you know what you are going to get. It's very predictable. And even if you repeat it, if you replicate that even in another country, you will still have the same kind of results. And as a result, there's emphasis on predictability. They also emphasize on what is called empiricism, on observation, typical of what people like Isaac Newton did, that, you know, we have the natural laws that govern the natural world, such as the law of gravity. And if you throw something in the air, it's going to fall down. It's going to fall down because of the force of gravity. So within the natural world, we have the natural laws that govern the natural world. So the positivists believe that we also have the social laws that govern the social world. And these social laws can actually be studied scientifically. So they believe that when you are producing knowledge, when you are doing research, you need to rely more on phenomenon that is quantifiable, right? So statistics and numerics and numbers are central to the positivist paradigm. So people like Emil Durkheim, for instance, was very much a positivist in his early work, was very much influenced by Auguste Comte. Initially conducted a study on suicide, making use of statistical evidence. So something that is probably regarded as social and psychological would be studied using mathematical principles, deriving inspiration from the natural sciences. So they believe that we can literally quantify every social phenomenon in the same way that the people in the natural sciences also quantify and predict things by making use of the scientific methods. But in contrast, the interpretivists, who are also called social constructivists, sometimes you see that it's written interpretivism or social constructivism. These guys emerged as a critique of the positivist tradition, and their argument was that we do not have a universal truth, but rather what we have is the very subjective contextual reality. So they believe that we do not have one reality like what the positivists were emphasizing. For them, what we have are multiple realities. Why? Because they believe that reality is something that is socially constructed. It's not something that we discover as if it's already in existence, like what the positivists wanted us to believe. The interpretivists believe that we actually co-construct this reality, we co-construct this truth through interacting with other people and attaching meanings to different things and different phenomenon. That's how we create the truth. So in this case, because the truth and reality is something that is socially constructed, it therefore means that we can never have a single reality, but we can have multiple realities. So these guys were very much interested in the complexities of human experience. They were more interested in the nuances of the meanings that people attach, the nuances of everyday life, and the meanings that people attach to phenomenon. They were more interested in people's stories, people's experiences, and people's perceptions, which are all contextual and vary from time to time, and also from place to place. And these guys, instead of emphasizing on objectivity, they foreground the subjectivity of human experience. And their argument is that human nature is naturally subjective, and therefore even researchers, human researchers, they are also very subjective. And as a result, we always bring our own baggage, our own biases in the knowledge production process. Even when we are doing research, we cannot detach ourselves from the knowledge that we produce. And therefore, instead of emphasizing on value freedom, like what the positivists were saying, that the research process and the process of knowledge production can be value free, it can be objective. The interpretivists and constructivists believe that we are immersed and heavily involved in the research process and in the process of knowledge production, and therefore the process of knowledge production is value laden. We have a lot of vested interest in the knowledge that we produce. So for instance, if you're a Christian and you're doing research on commercial sex work, no matter how much you try to detach yourself from your Christian norms, values, belief systems, and biases, you might find yourself either subconsciously or unconsciously, you might find the biases permeating in the knowledge that you produce, the arguments that you make, or the conclusions that you make. So these guys emphasize that knowledge is value laden. There are vested interests that we have in the knowledge that we produce. And they emphasize that there are certain things, especially social phenomenon, that we cannot necessarily understand through quantifying. We cannot quantify, for instance, happiness. We cannot quantify anger, but there are many other things that you can't quantify. And as a result, you can only attach a meaning to those things and to such phenomenon. So even if you see that someone is extremely happy, they're smiling, they are excited about a particular thing, you can never say with certainty that they are 100% happy or they are maybe 100% angry. Even if you see them turning the tables, throwing stones, you can never say with certainty that they are 100% angry or 100% happy. So in this case, we see that the emphasis is on the subjective meanings that we attach to reality, that we attach to phenomenon. So they emphasize that we can not quantify everything and we can never be objective, but rather we can only be subjective, because human nature and human phenomenon is very subjective. So they acknowledge the multiplicities of realities. They acknowledge the multiplicities of truths, that we do not have one truth, but we have multiple truths that we construct ourselves through the meanings that we attach, through the interpretation. Their argument is that we're always in the business of interpreting things, right? By interpreting things, we attach a meaning to a particular phenomenon, and by attaching meaning, we are co-constructing these multiple realities that we encounter in our everyday life. So these are important paradigms, whether you're doing social theory or maybe you're doing research at whatever level. It could be postgraduate level, undergraduate level, even up to PhD level. You see that you keep encountering these isms in knowledge production. That is your positivism and your interpretivism. So you would see that in terms of research, the interpretivist paradigm is aligned with more qualitative research. So it's more qualitative, while the positivist paradigm is more aligned with the quantitative research. So whenever you make decisions, methodological decisions, when you're doing your research, you're also making these philosophical claims that you are either aligning your work with the positivist paradigm or with the interpretivist paradigm. So in our next session, we are going to move to also talk about methodology, which is another aspect of knowledge production, as well as what is called pragmatism. Sometimes people refer to this as critical realism, which is another philosophical approach that is very much aligned with the more mixed method kind of approach, which tries to sort of triangulate certain elements of the positivist tradition and certain elements of the interpretive tradition in the process of knowledge production, as well as in the research process. So if you have any questions, you can throw the questions. I'll be happy to answer the questions. Thank you very much.